Welcome to the Queendom Network, a platform where inspired individuals in business, career, and entrepreneurship resonate with empowerment and innovation. This is where we dive deep into the world of leadership, uncovering stories, strategies, and secrets of success from trailblazers who are shattering glass ceilings and carving their own path to greatness. Join me, your host, Homoto Mamela Motili, as we embark on this amazing journey so that we help you become the best that God has created you to be.
Hello, Queendom family. Today is an exciting episode. We're taking reflections on the past 6 episodes. Can you believe it? 6! It's been a very amazing journey. We've had great, amazing guests. Remember my sister, the first guest who shared my story on the Get to Know Me episode. We had the amazing Dr. Kanile. Then we had the CEO of Soul City, Fina Golisang. Then Dr. Nkuli, the CEO of Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. How can we forget that dynamic Sis Noma Mngoma? Come on now, lessons learned from her were so powerful in the face of Gyno God King Jacobs. So you know we will not only bring you the best, but we bring you quality. Remember to tune in for Trailblazers, Pathfinders, Glass Ceiling Breakers here on the Queendom Network.
On the Queendom Network, we love our intro. Here it goes.
The moment has finally arrived. Episode 1 of the Queendom Network. You know, I've been wanting to say this over and over again. I've been rehearsing this for such a long time. So let me do the intro once again. Welcome to the Queendom Network. You know that we are a platform where the voices of inspired individuals resonate with empowerment and innovation. So you know we only bring you pathfinders, trailblazers, glass ceiling breakers. Brought you another trailblazer, another pathfinder. You know, I'm lacking a lot of, adjectives to really describe our amazing guest this morning. She is a formidable businesswoman. She's an adorable daughter. She's an amazing mother. She's an exceptional philanthropist, but also she is such an endearing human being. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my guest today.
Just like that, on the 30th of April, we started this amazing journey of the Queendom Network. Our first episode had my sister telling the story of how I survived a coma, renal dialysis, zero hemoglobin count, a wheelchair, at all. And this is how the Queendom was birthed.
And I get into the ward and Khomi is awake. And we're like, okay, what's going on? Khomi is awake. Mom is by Khomi's bedside. And I got the ward. I lean in towards Khomi because now she's awake and she could now speak.
Wow.
But her speaking voice was very faint. So obviously, I'm just in awe. I'm just amazed to say, okay, what's going on? Then I go towards her. So in order for you to hear what she was saying, you'd have to lean in so that you can hear what she's saying. And then Khomi says to me, obviously, we're just personally, I'm in tears, but trying to hold them back so that I don't startle her. And then she says to me, she's like, Sissy, where am I? And then I say, okay, you're in hospital. She says, hospital? I say, yeah, you're in hospital. And then she says to me, are we in Carltonville? Because our parents are from Carltonville, are based in Carltonville. And then I say, no, you're not in Carltonville, but we're still in Joburg. And then Khomi says to me, she said, I woke up and I looked around my bed and I saw balloons and flowers. What's that about? Then I said to her, the reason why there are balloons and flowers around your bed is because it was your birthday. So in the time while she was in a coma, her birthday was in those days. It was actually on the 20th of June. And She says it was my birthday. So she's big on birthdays. Homie loves her birthday.
I'm about to do that.
And so then I tell her that, no, it was your birthday. She's like, it was my birthday. I said, yes, it was your birthday. And then she starts to cry. And I said, no, don't cry. What matters now is that you're awake, right? You're alive. You're with us. And there'll be more birthdays to come. So, yeah. And yeah, from that moment, from that day, Khomi literally was awake. Khomi has came back to life ever since.
No
and
surgery.
No surgery. So the surgery that was supposed to happen on that Monday did not happen. And on the medical report, it's written, the surgeons were not convinced. So in other words, God did his own surgery on Khomi's body. And here she is. She lives to tell the tale. She had to relearn.
You know, because I love it when you narrate the story, because I remember the first time I heard you share. Because next thing, a whole hospital, a whole coma, a whole kidney dialysis, blood transfusion, that was hectic. And so I think I do thank God for this particular moment, because as we said, that to be here and sitting with you is nothing short of a miracle. And to live in this moment is also just to attribute it to God. And I want to say thank you. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, Gamu, for journeying with me the way you did, because I do believe that it is your faith and you believing in God through and through that actually got me here. And then also, like, our family of believers, our bishops at church. I mean, you know, when you tell
church
family, our family, you know, people have been with us throughout the journey. And I remember when I came out, now I'm coming to my senses. And then Bantlapis, I'm like, but it is so clamp. I'm like, why didn't clamp? You know, and not knowing that actually now I was in a coma, not being able to do anything for myself. And as you say, coming out the healing journey, I remember having to learn to walk because I was in a wheelchair. I was in diapers. I couldn't talk. I couldn't write. And that journey was, remember, my face was all poofy, and that's why we couldn't record the podcast. And I was like, I want to do the podcast, but I couldn't. And because my face was all because of all the stories they put in my body just to get me alive. And for me to be here at this moment is nothing short of a miracle. I appreciate life so much more, and that's why we brought in Dr. Kanyile.
We had such fun when we had Dr. Kanyile with her very effervescent personality. She really brought in her A game to this episode, and here's some snippets for you to enjoy.
And going forward, when I started realizing that people actually want to hear like how I do it, and I'm like, I don't know, I just pray, wake up and pray. But for a lot of people, you know, it's really difficult with the challenges that you have in your day to even think about like, I must wake up and be happy and not fake it, you know? So how do you have a good morning, everybody attitude that's real and authentic? So for me, that was really important to share. It came a big part from God. Like, I think actually it came from God, full stop. But also it came from an understanding that I can't live out my purpose if I'm rejecting what God has put in me. So even if I'm having a really tough day, I can be quiet, but I can still be like, you know, in a good spirit. I can still be optimistic. And I can also trust that, you know, at this thing, you know, I worked at Bara. Bara is Bara. You know, it's very busy. But I can handle anything. If you put me in any clinical situation, I'll be able to handle it. I can, you know, make multiple decisions. I can manage multiple people below me because of that environment. When I was in it,
it wasn't so romantic.
No, darling.
Now that you're talking about it, sounds romantic, but when you had to live it, it was something else.
And I mean, we're talking about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. You have to be as on, as awake as you were at 8 o'clock that morning, you know? So when you understand that there's certain characteristics that are in you that just are who you are, you can work your brand around that. So for me, a big thing is just positivity. And someone said such a nice word to me. They were like, you're effervescent.
Absolutely.
Hey, So they're like, you're effervescent. And I feel like that's how I want people to feel when I
Yes.
walk into a room. But also authenticity. I don't align with brands that, one, I don't use, or two, even if it's not necessarily a brand that I would use, it's one that I wouldn't recommend. And that's very rare that I wouldn't use a brand myself. And I've said no to things that could have potentially worked because I'm just like, I can't talk about it unless I use it. And I'm a long-term girly. So there's a couple of like brands that I work with that are long-term. And I like to build relationships that way because that makes more sense for me. Like we should be friends. If I can't like invite you as like my brand partner to like a lunch, like why are we why are we working together? If I can't say, oh, this product must be used by, even my daughter one day, as she grows up, I don't think that those are alignments I need to make. But also, I also understand when it comes to a brand, you're talking about a brand, who are the people that I would want to identify with me? I think it's difficult because nowadays people want to identify with everyone. And I think it's okay if some people don't. If you understand that, for you would like to really speak to people who love God.
Right.
If you want to speak to people who are hungry to grow in the corporate world. If you want to speak to people who are really focused on making a holistic life, that's also okay. It's not to say that you don't care about other people, but that's where your niche is.
Right.
And it's very important to have that idea so that you don't get confused in the hype because the world will take you everywhere, but focus on where God is taking you.
When you say that, our business coach said this for us. I mean, we were trying to get new people, new team members on board. And then she was listening to us give feedback and she says, I hear you, but is this person for you?
Yes.
Because somebody can have the right skill, they can have the right competence, they can have it like going on, but are they for you?
Exactly.
And I think we take for granted that for you part. So every time I engage with anyone or sit or anything, I'm always like, this is fantastic, but are they for you?
Yeah.
And because the thing is, once something is for you, you actually just flow naturally with it. You get on with it. But if it's not for you, it's like difficult to even engage or even to have, let's say, synergies with that individual or even a company. So one of the things that we do in our business is we've got the 21 commandments and it's literally thou shalt not. And we write down, we shall not do business with people who are like this. And we do that with our team when we do, let's say, onboarding, and we say, this is who we stand for, so that when somebody goes outside and they represent our brand, then they know, okay, already, because this person falls under the thou shalt.
Yeah.
And then they know that, okay, we're not going to engage with them. But one of the other things that you mentioned is utswako para. Right? And we know Bara, and must give it credit because it is the biggest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere. But today there's some doctors sitting out there and they're like, look, I want the opportunity to do my 2 years. And we are in an environment whereby they are not finding that particular opportunity. What would be your word of encouragement to them at this current moment?
So just to clarify, there are enough training posts for interns and community service doctors because they need supervision. The issue is all of the funding is going away from the guys who are after that step. So what they call independent medical practitioners or junior doctors, right? So what happens is when you graduate, you have 2 years of internship. So you are supervised by various doctors in different rotations. So you go to all the specialties, obs and gynae, medicine, surgery, etc. And then you move on to community service. So community service is a year because a lot of for a South African student who's born here, your fees are subsidized by the government.
Okay.
So what you find is that community service here kind of assists the government, with doctors. Sometimes you get placed in rural areas. It's actually not as scary as people think it is. It's quite a nice experience from the friends of mine who've worked in really rural areas because the communities are so close. So everybody really knows each other. But then you get that junior doctor here where you're called a medical officer if you work in state or an independent medical practitioner. So it's tricky because I think I always had the understanding that I was always going to work for myself at some point if I wasn't going to specialize. So even from the beginning when I started with my internship, I was fortunate that I was in the position where I could save. I didn't have a lot of expenses in terms of, because I know, black tax is a big thing. Some people are the first doctors in their families to ever graduate, or the only person maybe who's working and they need to send money back home. But I was in the fortunate position where I could save. So there's always the balance between, does the government owe us jobs or is it for us to work. And I think it's a combination of both, right? You also have to understand that because it's a job market, you have to fight for your place.
Right.
So even if you want to be in a particular hospital or in a particular department, what qualities should I as an employer pick for you over someone else? And I think that's where with the new crop of doctors that are coming up, because everyone else kind of just had jobs afterwards, the assumption was it would be available, and now it's not. So the government really needs to make a decision, because if you're going to train this many doctors, you need to make space for this many doctors to be available. And you need to be able to absorb that. But then also, if you're going to force us into private, you also need to give us, facilities or make allowances for us to move that way. And I think it's very tricky, because whose fault is it? It's a combination of things.
Yeah.
We can't really say. But at the end of the day, I always try to remove myself from the situation and say, okay, if I had no option for next year, what would I do? And I think that's why I'm blessed that I was able to, take a look at all of my options and, go in the direction that I did.
I think what you're referring to mostly is having ownership of your journey.
Yes.
And that is very important, because the economic climate is different. I mean, I was laughing the other day. I'm like, when we came onto the scene, jobs were available.
Yeah.
We were doing those CVs.
There was a shortage and they were like, we need more doctors. They opened up posts.
Yes. And so now with the economic climate, it's a matter of owning your journey. And now I'm asking myself, in this economy, you're taking a downtime. And how are then you going to move? Are you going to, let's say, go into corporate or back into medicine? What is it that is going to drive you for the next chapter next for you?
So the problem with God is that his dreams are very big for me, ne?
Wow.
They're very big.
A big God, oh.
Hey, I've got a very big God. So, so it's not a problem. God is like a big part of what I'm doing. And so, one, I will definitely practice medicine. There's no way, like, I'm a clinician at heart. So when I say clinician, I mean, I need to.
Fina Korisang took us through the journey of coming out of Mpanji of Garankuwa to the United Nations. This is the story of a phenomenal, amazing, and inspirational leader.
That is such a good trait to have. And I think normally people think when you lead, you need to have like aggression. You need to be aggressive instead of just being assertive.
Yeah.
You need to bulldoze your way in the room. And I think that is the thing that has been taught, with regard to certain levels of masculinity. We can just let men be men, but we are women in leadership. And there's really power in tapping into our femininity.
Yeah.
Do you mind maybe just expounding on what, when we tap into our femininity, that's one thing I've seen is that women who lead, they become very confident and they become very, assertive without becoming bulldozers or whatever. So what is it that, have you seen the power of obviously tapping into your femininity as you lead?
I tap into that all the time because that's me, that's my character, right? And I also live by values of respect for fellow people, understanding that today I might be the one on top, but tomorrow somebody else.
And you're indispensable.
So I always, like I say, go to this, if I'm humbled, I'll be exalted. And so my responsibility is to be a humble person.
Good.
And to make sure that I bring everyone there.
Right.
And you find that each time people want to come and argue with you, they don't even know where to start. They're like, hey, but now I don't even know how to shout at you. I want to shout at you. How do I shout at you? Because you bring this energy that says we can have a conversation. We don't have to fight. Right? We can disagree, but disagreeing doesn't mean, voices are raised.
True.
It can be a disagreement where you are putting your facts forward. I'm putting my facts forward, and we find common ground. And if there's no common ground, then there are days when I'm like, oh, by the authority in, vested in me as CEO, this is where we are going. But when I do it, people really understand that it's her position. She must take that position.
And also it's a matter of people not taking your kindness as a weakness.
Yeah.
Because it's there's a line, because sometimes when you become kind and you're very approachable, people think then they can step over some lines. And one of the things I'm thinking about, I grew up watching Soul City. I mean, Kumbula with Sister Bettina. I mean, imagine they made a whole song about it anyway. But it was just like on TV educating us with regard to AIDS, and then now it's an institution. Did you feel, I mean, it has a legacy. Did you ever feel at any time, for example, dealing with the imposter syndrome, that maybe you're not the girl for the job?
Fortunate enough, I've never had this imposter syndrome. I think, like I said, I was always told, you are the girl for this.
Right.
So, and my father saying,
Innately so, it was
yes,
in
right?
you.
And my father saying, watch this space. This one is going to go places. Right? And in fact, he said, you owe me a PhD now. So I owe my father a PhD.
NQF level 10.
So each time I want to drop out, I'm like, hey, can I owe that man a PhD?
Right.
You know, he believed in me that I can achieve it and I will achieve it. You know, so I've never had this imposter syndrome because I believe that there's no way something can be deposited in me and people see it, recognize it, and then it makes me feel inferior. Right? So I always go into the space saying, this I can do, things I can't do. I'm always a learner.
Right.
So each time I enter a space, the things that I know how to do, you will see that I know. This
And
is
you
her space.
excel.
She excels in this. And things that I'm not afraid to say, here, guys, I need to learn. Teach me. I don't know how to do it. So I've never had this imposter syndrome. And to tell you, when the post became available, the employees of Soul City were coming to me and say, we hope you're going to apply. Right? So already they were
affirming you.
Correct.
Wow.
Of all the people that we see right now in the organization, we believe you are the person for the job. So there was no way I would doubt. In fact, I wondered, I was wondering, should I apply, not apply? And when 3-4 people came and said, is your CV in there? Because, you know, we are rooting for you. I'm like, oh, okay. Why is my CV not in there?
Yeah, go. Yes. And because I think one thing I love is that, because a lot of women think that when they get into leadership, automatically they need to deal with the imposter syndrome. But the thing about it is, it's about you affirming yourself from where you come from. Taking all your experiences, everything, your nuances, and putting them in one place and say, I am the girl that I think that I am. And I'm the girl for the job, you know. And in spite of whatever you hear, naysayers. And I think one of the things that I've seen, you know, they make a joke. They say when a man sees a job, he just applies.
Yeah.
The girl will always see, do I have the qualifications over and above and beyond? But we need to teach ourselves that level of audacity.
Yeah.
That level of audacity that, you know what, I can do it, you know, and I don't need to prove myself in any other way. I am enough as I am. And I'm just going to go for the particular opportunity and I'm going to do it. And also when we in those positions, and I love the way how you narrate, how you lead in your organization, to say, you know what, you engage with somebody who's at the bottom, even up to the United Nations in New York, and, you know, leading. I mean, I saw you leading. I'm like, Tataka, Garanga,
I was in
Garanga.
a room with ministers,
Come
and I'm
on now.
moderating this session, and as I'm like, madam, your time is up. Can we move to
Can
the
you
next
imagine?
question? And you do it, and you can see these people are so used to being the ones who speak and nobody says anything. But I'm like, I was assigned a job. My
and
job
I'm here to
was
do
to
it.
moderate this session, to get everyone to put their facts on the table and to deliberate. So there's no way Homi is going to take 3 hours when we've allocated her 15 minutes.
Sure.
When your 15 minutes is up, Madam President, Madam Minister, your time is up.
You know, one thing I love about you, you know, I've been in the room with you. I've seen you on platforms. Now when I look at you, I'm always in awe, because I'm like, how does she do it? You know, how do you, I mean, what are the things that you do? Because you ooze confidence, you ooze power. And it's I don't know, unale that thing. Una that thing, and it just makes it, you are very admirable. How do you then teach somebody else? You know, somebody might say, wow, look at her, she's looking so good leading and all of that, but then how do you impart it to the next person to say, this is how you take up your position, this is how you lead? And how do you tell that to somebody sitting watching you and thinking, wow, I want to be like you?
Yeah. Look, I'm a child of God, right? There's nothing impossible.
Oh, so you're
For my
Philippians
father
4:13. Come on now.
So honestly, I'm rooted in, if I want to do it, what will stop me?
Wow.
Right? So I always go for, I can do it.
I can do it.
And if I fail, I'm like, oh no, there's a lesson to be learned. It's not a failure. It's, oh, we've learned a lesson here. We know how not to do it the next time. So, I never allow myself to get to a point where I say, oh no, I failed. Oh, and then you dwell on those mistakes.
And you mull on the mistakes.
No, what did you learn from this
And we move.
experience? And how are you going to take those lessons?
Nice.
So that next time when you are faced with a similar situation, remember, we don't do it this way, we do it this other way, right? So I'm a child of God, and every day my life is centered around God. Here we are. Today is a new day. Let's go. Right? And when God is with you, bathong, ke eng e tla o palla?
Nothing is impossible. They say the word impossible. When you spell it, you write impossible.
Impossible.
And so that's what you need to look at it, and having a different vantage point to say,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I am possible.
Remember Dr. Nkuli, from bomb blast survivor to CEO. Hear her inspirational story.
Right. So when I was 9 years old, first year at the German school, I was in a bomb blast accident. So I got injured.
Bomb blast. What do you mean bomb blast?
Yeah.
Like bomb.
Bomb, explosion, boom, boom. Yes,
Yo.
explosion. So back in, during the time when we were transitioning from
Yes,
apartheid South
apartheid,
Africa,
yes.
exactly. So there was a lot of instability, so you'd have explosions. So we were in town with my mom. It was a Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
and I went to get my first set of glasses at an optometrist. And I remember asking, I need to use the bathroom. When you're a child,
Yeah.
you constantly, I need the bathroom. So I needed a bathroom, and there was a shopping center right across from the optometrist called Tony Factors.
Yes, I remember it downtown.
Yeah, downtown. So she took me there, ordinary day, and we're going into the bathrooms, and then suddenly, boom, an explosion.
Bomb, bomb.
Bomb.
Not
like,
Yashaga, bomb, bomb, bomb.
no, not that. Like, yeah, it's like a proper
Sure.
explosion, So we were in there, unfortunately involved in it. We were not terribly injured while we're here. We've survived it, and there's some people who are badly injured during that incident. And then that was my first exposure to healthcare workers and healthcare, because I had to be taken to casualty, just to be checked on. And my aunt actually reminded me of this last year. She said, you remember what you said on that hospital bed when you were 9?
Wow.
You said, you want to take care of children
Oh,
like yourself who find themselves. I was like,
full
sure, I'm telling you,
circle.
it can work and have the tools that they need to work. And that's really when I decided somebody has to do
Somebody has to do
this.
that. To
Somebody
mean.
Exact. To mamina. To mamina. So really.
But I hear your name. You're not famous. Your family is not known. In South Africa, there are the struggle stalwarts, certain surnames.
Yeah.
And then the post comes,
Yeah.
CEO, Nelson Mandela Hospital. What gave you that guts to say, you know what, I'm going for it?
So to be honest with you, it happened. This one was an incidental one. So what happened was I was working at Mandela as the head of clinical services. So I was in charge of the doctors and the allied health professionals for about 2.5 years, right? And then at some point, my boss, because of what was happening at the time, resigned.
Okay.
Together with the CFO. So there was literally a leadership vacuum in the hospital because the two most senior people resigning on the same week.
Oh my goodness.
It was so unstable. And so I was the next then senior person after that. And I was asked, can you please come and assist us because these people have left. And at that time, there was a transaction going on, with another company, and everybody was unhappy because of the transaction. People were leaving. My goodness. And there I go. And they said, can you? And I said, okay, if there's no one else, I'm going to do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put my hand up. It was risky. My husband did not necessarily agree with me because he was like, are you sure? I don't think this is a good idea. But I just thought, look, I've been in the hospital. I'm passionate about this. The idea of a children's hospital has always been in my heart. I may not have this experience to be a CEO. I've never done it anywhere.
Sure.
But I understand healthcare. I understand hospitals because I've worked in hospitals at that time, I think.
Kim's story is that of courage and determination.
So 2 years ago, I've entered the competition and there were 3 contestants that they chose and I didn't make it. Then last year, I was in hospital, mind you, end of September, October. I decided, you know what, I'm still going to enter this competition, but I was hoping that I would be discharged from hospital. However, that did not happen. A day before the competition closed, I said to my husband, please go get the product, get me the slip, because that was one of the requirements. I took a selfie on the hospital bed and I entered the competition. And yes, 10,000 entries later, nationally, I've actually just came up top 10.
From a selfie.
From a selfie.
On your hospital bed.
With a hospital gown, without makeup, just me in my raw self, telling my story, and that's what happened.
If we were in church, we'll say, give the Lord a shout,
Shout of
somebody.
praise.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
so it was quite something huge for me, still is. I wear my crown with so much pride, and that is why I decided to wear my crown this afternoon.
Beautiful, beautiful. But then also, I know we did your homecoming. You come from, do you mind just giving a background to our global audience where you come from?
So I come from a small town called Eldorado Park in Johannesburg, South Africa, born and raised there, a township area. My people, I love them.
Talk about resilience personified. This is who Noma Mngoma is. What an amazing, exceptional episode. She really showed us what it means to be resilient and to bounce back.
I'm not the person who say, why me? I always say, okay, God, what do you want out of this?
Wow.
Show me the way. What else? So that's why no matter what happens, I don't lose myself. No matter what can I go through in life, you will never find me maybe look weird or maybe I'm not beautiful in my own self, because I always feel like whatever I have in life, that the best thing I have, it's me. It's my body's a temple. It's everything. My presence is everything. Then I can go through what I go through. I can grieve. I can cry, but I have to take care of what I have. So that's why most of the time, even when I'm going through a difficult time, I know that God will still bless me, and through my difficult time is not the end of the road. And I know that God has never left me, so God still loves me. So I always have hope. So I've never been in a space where I feel like this is it. I remember when I was arrested, I never felt like, oh, now my life is finished. I was like, God, when you allow this to happen, what do you want from me? So what next? What do you want? And how do I get out of this? Because as for me, with my inner strength, I feel like I reached the bottom, but I know there's you. So what do you want? What next? So, yeah.
I love you so much. Sorry, I don't want to shed a tear, but that is you. Again, the resilience, always pushing. You know, there's a saying that say, dress up, show up, and never give up.
I always do that.
You know, and that's what you always do. You always dress up in spite of anything that you're going through. You always give us your best, you know. I mean, I saw you mentoring entrepreneurs in Africa. I mean, how do you draw strength? Even as you mentioned earlier, that growing up in the village, you found it a responsibility to give back to others. So how do you move? For example, you just mentioned that you were going through a tumultuous time, but then drawing strength so that you're able to impart to others. How do you just do that?
Because my existence is not only for myself. And that's why whatever I do, I'm not only doing it for myself. Even when I'm wrong, I always like, let me correct or let me step up for myself, because I'm not only existing for myself. There are young girls and also my family, and there are people who just love me, like you and other people. So when I'm hurting, I'm not the only person who's hurting. But if I stay down, I'm letting everyone down. So if I do good, it's not only Noma Mngoma. It's the whole, if I do something like when I was receiving awards out of the country, it's the whole South Africa. Wow. Now it doesn't become me alone. So it's the KZN, it's my clan, it's my children, my sons. So every time when I do, and it's my God. So I always want to praise his name. God knows that I love him so much. And most of my friends always say, when a God listens to you more, so when you pray. Because for me, I don't take God for granted. Like, I don't take his presence for granted. And I don't say, why this is happening to me. So why shouldn't be me? you know, and it doesn't mean I enjoy difficult times. I don't enjoy it. I sober, I cry as well. Like, I have moments where I can't sleep, but I call on him. Like, I call on him, I lay myself down. I know how to put myself, and also I have a very beautiful structure around me where I have people when I can't call God, they step in the gap. And I became that kind of a person to other people, that they can stand in the gap for me. Like, you know what, I'm going through this, I can't pray. Because there's a time where you can't even express your feelings because you're hurting so much or you're bitter. Because it happens. Especially after investment, you open a company and then the company gets shut down. Or you put investment, you invest in a wrong. We've done all that. And then that is not nice. To put yourself together again, it's a matter of hope. It's a matter of what next. But if you don't have any higher power that you believe in, it becomes harder. And also, if you make any individual, I'm very happy and very proud of myself that I've never make any human being on earth. I can love you so much, but my God is always the higher power.
Wow.
So I know that He will never fail me, even if He can allow certain situations come. But I know I will bounce back from them because I know God loves me.
You know, and as I'm hearing you, it sounds like obviously as an entrepreneur, you've gone through different journeys.
I've done.
you know, I mean,
I've
even
been.
us personally in our journey as entrepreneurship, there are times when
We've had so many moments that make you go,
anyway. But it was just like on TV educating us with regard to AIDS, and then now it's an institution. Did you feel, I mean, it has a legacy. Did you ever feel at any time, for example, dealing with the imposter syndrome, that maybe you're not the girl for the job?
Fortunate enough, I've never had this imposter syndrome. I think, like I said, I was always told, you are the girl for this.
Right.
So, and my father saying,
Innately so, it was in
right?
you.
And my father saying, watch this space. This one is going to go places. Right? And in fact, he said, you owe me a PhD now. So I owe my father a PhD.
NQF level 10.
So each time I want to drop out, I'm like, hey, can I owe that man a PhD?
Right.
You know, he believed in me that I can achieve it and I will achieve it. You know, so I've never had this imposter syndrome because I believe that there's no way something can be deposited in me and people see it, recognize it, and then it makes me feel inferior. Right? So I always go into the space saying, this I can do, things I can't do. I'm always a learner.
Right.
So each time I enter a space, the things that I know how to do, you will see that I know. This
And
is
you
her space.
excel.
She excels in this.
I'm the one. You are the
Exactly.
gal.
I'm the girl. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, you're going to show me. And I sat in there, I looked at that computer. You know, I had to calm myself down, you know. And I'm like, God, you wouldn't have allowed. Because my prayer always, with any opportunity I look at, I said, God, if it's not for me, you'll make sure that it doesn't happen. But it's for me.
I've heard somebody say, what God cannot do, let it remain undone.
Let it remain.
Let it remain
Exactly.
undone.
Exactly.
Because the thing about it is, if He says it's for you,
Yeah.
He will equip you and make sure that you
Indeed.
succeed and you perform with excellence.
Which is what he did. I'm like, he's not going to put me up there just to embarrass me and shame me. That's not going to happen. You know, and so but you have to deal a lot with that. And you find that, I remember in those first few weeks, people telling me, no, when you're such a nice person, but we're not sure if you've got the vision to do this, you know. Have you ever done something like this? And some of them are older people, you know, that you look up to, and you're like, but how can you be? You should be encouraging me.
A
instead.
typical example of the unconscious bias.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
in corporate, we've experienced it.
Yeah.
And how did you overcome that, dealing with the unconscious bias?
You know, I realize that it's a reality, right? It's what's going to happen. Yes, I'm a young black female. It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
It has always come with it. And the first comment people always make, oh, you're so young. I'm like, okay. It is what it is. But you have to be competent. And I told myself that it's the competence and I'm going to deliver. I'm not going to compromise on how I deliver, on how I run the organization. And now we're friends with some of those because it's 4 years later since I took over as CEO. Thank you.
Love it.
And here we are. So for me, it's the delivery that matters. deliver on the work, and that's it. And the work will speak for itself.
How do you keep yourself motivated?
Stay tuned to the Queendom Network. You know, we only want you to become the best that God has created you to be. We've got phenomenal guests, amazing episodes lined up. So you keep following, liking, and subscribing so that we continue to bring you quality content.